Welcome to The Growth Switch, the podcast where we dive into the strategies, struggles, and breakthroughs of bold business leaders. I'm your host, Jules Fox, growth strategist and lead content creator at Aries Media. I'm here to uncover how today's top brands are scaling, overcoming challenges, and unblocking sustainable success. Each episode, we sit down with industry leaders, innovators, and problem solvers to explore the real stories behind business growth, the pivotal moments, the surprising insights, and the hard-earned lessons that make all the difference. Today's guest, I'm very proud to present Chris West. He's rewriting the rules of financial hiring. He's got the People Group, Jampot, which offers fractional talent, Byron, which offers a virtual assistant to the US, and Leverage Assistant for Asian talent. It empowers companies to hire specialized roles at exactly the level they need. Chris brings a bold strategic approach to staffing by offering tiered on-demand support that's flexible, fast, and founder-friendly, and we're actually going to find out quite a bit more. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you, Jules. That was a good intro.
No, thanks so much. So super stoked to have you on the show, and definitely have a bunch of really good questions lined up. But the big one off the top of my head is, how did you get involved in what you do?
It's a very good question. So I spent 9 years in corporate, and I led a variety of very large teams through. So the last role I had was 5,000 people. So I was always working and around people and enjoyed that element of leadership. However, had the epiphany at 30 that I knew I needed to break free. Golden handcuffs, as we call them in the UK, were getting quite tight. I didn't have kids, wasn't married at the time. So I knew the time was for me to go off and do something of my own. I guess when I was thinking about my skill set, I was thinking about where can I really leverage that skill in an area of business. And to be honest, I was always bought into areas that needed a new leadership layer, needed the profit and loss to be put back on track, and just really bring something back to high performance, whether it be the teams or the performance metrics. And I gathered that buying businesses would be a good way to do that. So forming the People Group over the last couple of years has been one arm of that kind of foray into acquiring businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. So, that strategy seems pretty brilliant. It sounds like you saw what the deeper meaning was behind all of that, and you switched to something more bird's eye view that's more all-encompassing.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. And I liked the space. I saw that even the business that I worked in, which was one of the largest retailers in the UK, were using some form of contractor sort of consultancy based resourcing in different areas of the business. And I knew there was a need for it. If businesses that large are utilizing it at stages, then there's a need for it in every single company size. So it was always something that interested me. It was also a bit more of a strategic acquisition method, because I also use those businesses myself for other acquisitions that I make in more traditional spaces in the UK. So it's a really interesting method of resourcing for businesses, for sure.
Yeah. So walk me through what your idea was, what the industry problems were that you wanted to solve with these companies.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, and to be fair, this isn't just UK specific, is hiring generally full-time is very expensive. Not just so much from the salary and then the payroll taxes and pension contributions, or 401k, as you guys would say in the US. It's all the other things that you have to really factor in, or quite often people don't. So you make a hire, you're paying the high recruitment fees to the recruiter that's assisted you. That hire then doesn't work out. You've then got to take them through the process of removing them from the business. That takes time, energy, and cost, because someone's salary is spent having to do that. Then you've got to start the process all over again to find the replacement individual. So the whole process is really long-winded. It's very expensive. So I liked the idea of having something that was almost aggregating that hiring space, almost, that was a strong alternative. Is it a full-time replacement forever? Probably not, but it's a good solution for that first 12, 18 months while businesses may be scaling. They might be testing whether the role is actually required or not, but it means they don't have to commit to that full-time hire immediately and that cost associated with it. And that was one of the biggest reasons that I liked most about this model. I saw fractional work obviously becoming a really big thing. I would say in the US, you guys have leveraged it a lot quicker than the UK have. It feels really, really educational here still, even though the models, Jampot, one of our businesses, has been around for 10 years almost. It still feels really quite a new model in some ways. And you've really got to sell it to UK businesses to really get them to understand the benefit that they could get from utilizing this way of resourcing. Whereas I feel the gig economy and sort of fractional freelance work in the US is far, far sort of more advanced than it is over here. So I liked the idea of when you watch the US and some of the things you guys are further ahead on than us, you can kind of guess that we will eventually get to that stage as well. And that was kind of one of the other reasons that I started to look a little more deeply into that industry space.
That makes a ton of sense. Yeah, and it sounds like, you as a very cutting edge person who is looking for that next step, you're constantly trying to find what the trends are. What are the trends that you currently see for the future?
I mean, AI is obviously huge. We're all talking about it. We're trying to work out how we intertwine that into our businesses sustainably. There is obviously lots of talk around it's going to replace jobs. I think we need to use that term quite loosely. It will replace the transactional jobs in all businesses for sure, and it's doing that already. But those employees or fractional people or self-employed individuals that are just not looking at AI or utilizing it, of course, will find themselves in a bit of a hard place over the now and for the foreseeable. What I liked most about this model is that it's a really nice human interaction point for AI. So as businesses become adopting AI more and more, they'll still need occasionally that human input at different levels, and I think it will just push that need for talent further up the food chain. And I feel this model enables you to do that without the full-time commitment. You haven't then got someone that's maybe spending 30%, 40% of their weekly hours not doing an awful lot because there are now tools that are enabling them to maybe not have to do those roles anymore. Whereas this is like a plug and play solution. So if you need more financial strategic input as opposed to the bookkeeping and accountancy stuff, because you've got softwares and AI adopted softwares that can take care of that, you can use this model to plug that fractional support in at the more strategic level, as opposed to having that full-time employee in place. And that was something I could see definitely becoming more prevalent. I do think it's still important for our industry in this space to be leveraging AI as well. So we do lots of sessions internally with all of our fractional teams to make sure that they are upskilled on AI. They understand the new softwares that are available to them, because we see that as a way of really maximizing their productivity and performance. And if we can push that to businesses, they're getting someone that's plugged into their team already, but is not a full-time, a commitment, and they're able to use and leverage AI, naturally will boost the productivity of the team they've got existing internally already, which we see that quite happening quite frequently.
Yeah, I can see the value and benefit in that immediately. So for viewers and listeners who aren't 100% clear on what this model is there any way that you could maybe simplify this and maybe backtrack just a tiny bit and talk about what fractional even means? Because for some people, this is a new concept.
Yeah, absolutely. I think fractional is probably the more of the buzzword at the moment. I quite like that term, hence why I'm using it quite a lot. But I think if we strip it back slightly, so we all kind of know about freelancers more or less now. So basically, the models of the three businesses are ultimately leveraging freelancers. So Jampot, which is the UK-based business, has a number of freelancers that specialize in different areas of business support. So whether that be operations all the way through to finance and legal and marketing. And then we've got the other two businesses, Byron and Leverage Assistant, in the group that more leverage on the virtual assistant side of things. So a lot more of a cost-effective solution. But ultimately, all three models are freelancers. I think the fractional term has come about because it is fractional work. It's time spent when it is needed to be spent for businesses. So that's kind of that fractional element. But in essence, what the model does is we find and source freelancers. We've got a very, very strong, robust process for that, because as you can be aware, there's lots of freelancers out in the market right now, which is great. There's lots of talent, but finding that exceptional talent, you need to have some strong processes. Businesses don't necessarily have the time to do that. They don't have the time to be going on the marketplaces. And quite often with those models in the marketplaces specifically, lots of businesses have been burnt by them. They found someone, they've engaged with them. All of a sudden, the work quality is really poor. They've then got to start that process all over again to not only correct the work that's been done, but also find a replacement. Or worse still, they just disappear with no communication, which is obviously a really common pain point on the marketplaces as well. Our three models completely solve that need. So you would use us because you don't want to source, you haven't got the time, you need high quality talent, you need it now, and then you can plug and play that into your teams in a very flexible way that enables you to get the work done, saves you money in the process because you're not having to hire full time. And it just means you've got that level of support where your business most needs it. And I think we'll just see more of this now. There's so much talk about businesses that will be 500 million revenue businesses with a team of 10. Now that's 10 probably full-time employees leveraging AI really, really in depth, but they still will be using that kind of freelance fractional model in between where they need maybe a bit more expertise, but they just don't need to hire it. And that's exactly the solution that we provide with the group.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think that's very insightful. So maybe an old school method of looking at your business model, they might look at, running these different businesses and say, well, why don't you just have like one business? So I guess this is a two-part question. How do you personally have the time to run as many businesses of your own as you do?
That's a good question. I think with these businesses, you can run them pretty lean. So we don't need an awful lot of full-time employees ourselves because A, we've got access to exceptional talent as we have in our businesses, which we can utilize. And providing that, one of the things that we set up quite clearly is operationally, we're very slick. So we have lots of automations that we build in. We have a really set standard of standard operating procedures that we replicate in each of the acquisitions that we make. So our operating playbook is very robust. So it kind of means that we can keep lean. They run themselves almost by themselves with the input of our team. And then we can then just think about the sales and the marketing and the strategic element of scaling them and growing them beyond, as opposed to a traditional business that might be a brick and mortar company that, yes, needs lots of labor. It needs lots of time. It needs lots of support. These businesses, complete opposite.
Yeah. So what is your growth strategy?
That's probably the one element that we're working really hard on at the minute. I think when we went into the space, I definitely underestimated the two problems you have, which I know most people will say this isn't a problem, but actually it kind of has been in some way, is the TAM, the addressable market, is huge. There isn't really any business that couldn't utilize this method of resourcing. So immediately across all three of the businesses, our addressable market is massive. When we look at our client roster and we look at those that we engage with, there's never really a specific industry or decision maker that we see more commonly than others. So you trying to dial down a specific ICP has been really challenging. I think we're starting to see green shoots with that, and things are changing slightly this year in terms of who we're really resonating with. But it's not a case of us going, right, we can see we're really resonating in the biotech industry with this decision maker. Right, we're going to double down on that and we're going to go for it. That's probably been the biggest challenge. So our overall growth strategy is at the moment really building out a sales function and a marketing function like flywheels that are able to kind of work from an outbound perspective, give us those kind of leads that can be repeated in areas that we know that we work really well in. But the only way we're kind of doing that is a rapid testing of sort of propositioning and messaging, really thinking about our service sort of product fit and how we package that as well. And that is constantly evolving. It's been probably the one thing that moves quickest in this industry because, for the last 4 months, we might have found that finance support is really popular. Okay, so we double down on that service, we go after it. All of a sudden, we start to see demand for IT support. And it's just that constant cycle of change. And you have to move really quickly with that. So I guess in answer to the question, we're still working it out.
Sure. No, that makes sense. And it almost seems like there's two elements to this. The one is that once you do hit on something great that works, you can repeat much of it across the companies. But also because the companies are slightly different, you may find a different niche for each of the companies that there are. So some will be like interchangeable and you can say, hey, this is a fantastic strategy that we love it and it works and it's really growing this particular business. Can we use this on the next company? Parts of it, yes, maybe parts of it, no, because we do have a different ICP,
Yeah, exactly that. I think, and also you think about the way I see it is it's three elements. You've got the operating flywheel, you've got sales, you've got marketing. I think operating flywheel, we've got that nailed and we can absolutely just plug and play that into every acquisition now. But exactly to your point, Jules, the sales and marketing won't necessarily always be the kind of copy and paste as we want it to be because, there will be slight tweaks and changes. I think the biggest thing that we like about acquiring these different kind of models or different jurisdictions where they're operating is it's that cross-selling opportunity as well. So if we're trying to sell someone fractional support, and we actually do see this quite regularly, that they are really wanting someone in the UK because obviously native speaking, the skill level they need, the experience in the industry they operate in is here, then we can sell them that. Or if cost is a real big pain point for them, then we can then decide to talk about the other two businesses because they're a little bit more cost effective. You get full time in terms of hours, solutions and support for a lot lower cost as you would have to pay here, basically. So there's definitely something in that. But I think, definitely still working through how we kind of bring all that together as a big growth strategy at the minute.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, the way that you've just painted that picture, it looks like you've got a very clear, like, sister company that you can pass those leads to, and you say, hey, well, we don't necessarily do that specifically, but if you're looking for a lower cost, you should probably use this company, which also is your company. So you're not just an affiliate marketer at that point. You're also offering the full service from a different company that's yours.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a fantastic idea. What's something that you would suggest to other companies in a similar space who are trying to figure out what to do, where to grow? You seem like a very successful person who knows what you're doing. So, for that person who is looking what to do next, our listeners, our viewers, what would you recommend to them?
I mean, I wouldn't say we've hit the net levels of success yet. I think one thing we've been thinking a lot more about recently, and I would definitely suggest this is a good move for anyone in this space, and actually in most spaces, is distribution. So there obviously are loads of ways of marketing and selling your product, your service, and you've just got to have the ability to try and test and cut something if it's not working pretty quickly. Don't just run towards the shiny object of running ads or scaling this campaign over another. Like, find test things and do it in a really, really quick, easy and relatively small way, but just don't go all in on something immediately, hoping and praying it's going to all of a sudden just catapult the business. And I think honestly, I was probably in that place about a year and a half ago when I first started going into this space thinking, yeah, okay, well, we'll double down on email marketing. It's going to solve all our problems. It doesn't. We know what channels kind of work for us, but what we haven't got to the stage yet is just being able to go, right, that's the one channel and we'll double down on that. So my advice to anyone is just think about how you can distribute your brand, your proposition quickly, and do it in a way that you can test rapidly with any of the channels that you try, because going in on one and leaving it for 6 months won't yield you the results that you're necessarily expecting. And think outside the box. So distribution at the minute, podcasts, newsletters, micro influencers. That's the real way of really pushing out your brand and your business and your service offering. And I think we need to think more outside of the box than we've ever needed to before, because distribution is it's so accessible to everyone now. It isn't just a case of 10 years ago where you could probably run a PPC campaign and yield results quite quickly. I think it's just not that case now. I think in this industry, anything to do with resourcing, it's got to feel quite organic and natural for someone to want to buy from you. I think if it's a cold outreach, yes, you'll get intent, but nothing beats that kind of warm introduction, whether it's been a referral or a sponsored post on a newsletter, whether that's been a warm referral through a client of yours that you've got a really good affiliate program with. Those are, I would say, the ones where you really want to look into and dial down on.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that iterative approach in which you're quickly finding out what doesn't work so that you don't end up wasting money on it, and finding the thing that does work, but constantly refinding the thing that does work seems to be part of like a new trend, similar to earlier when we were talking about AI. We're like, well, how is AI going to enhance and scale things? It just shifts so quickly. Just when you think you've learned something new, there's something even newer. And it's the same with marketing, is what I'm noticing as well, is that, the strategy that worked really well for 3 years prior, is not going to work for 3 years. You might, 3 months might be a very long run, or 3 weeks might be more accurate for the thing that's working that you want to double down on. But then you're going to want to be able to find a system to find the next winner and then double down on that as well.
Yeah, I think it's a bit double-edged sword, really, because exactly to that point, there's there's more ways to scale than there's ever been, but at the same time, it takes so much time and effort and testing to find what works, and that definitely is and will probably be the biggest challenge that any business faces now. I speak to lots of business owners over the last 3 or 4 years. Previously, a business, they had was just built on referrals, organic, people just saying, great service, use these guys. All of a sudden, overnight, it disappeared, just completely dried up. And they're sort of scrambling around going, oh my God, we don't have any other outbound model that's working for us. We were just relying on all of this inbound referrals or organic leads that we were getting. And it was those businesses that, and now are still having to test rapidly to find another channel that they can almost not depend on, but is a bit more repeatable and scalable, as opposed to just accepting that, yeah, everyone's going to refer us because we're great. And to be honest, our businesses were probably in that space and we acquired each of them. All of them grew organically for many years, all of them through referrals. great service fit, great PMF, like that was fine. What we then had to do is then go, right, fine, well, we can't depend on that forever. So we've got to work out where this outbound system works for each of those brands, because we need both firing on all four cylinders, because if one starts to kind of slow down and dry up, we need the other one to pick up the slack. And that's very much the journey we're on with them.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that's put you way ahead of the competition, because I think that people still are just kind of hoping and doing this hope marketing, hoping that the referrals will continue to come in. And there's nothing wrong with referrals. They're fantastic. And that should absolutely be a portion of your strategy, but it's just not the way to scale. You can't rely on referrals coming in, but what you can rely is these inbound, outbound strategies that you come up with, that are not referrals. And you can actually create a system of getting constant business versus hoping that the business comes in.
Hope's always good. I think that what's interesting for me as well, like I've been reflecting on this a lot more over sort of this year going into 25, was sales and marketing I enjoy, but it's not my bag. So my experience previously is, high level leadership, very operational. I like the high level strategy of, working out what we're going to require and how we're going to absorb that, and, how we're going to sort of take that from 5 to 10. Sales and marketing for me is now that point where I need, and we're hiring at the moment, to bring someone in-house that can kind of take this founding strategy role to say, right, well, this is kind of all the things we're doing, but we're not really doing them very well. So this is what we're going to test and push out to market. So I've kind of got to the point where I've had to accept that actually this isn't my skill set and we need to bring someone in. And that's also the best thing you can advise anyone. And I do see this a lot out there, but it's so true, is get to the point where you realize that you've only taken it so far, and now you need to bring that level of skill set into the business to take it to the next level. And that's exactly where we are. Like, we need someone now that's got the sales experience, understands marketing, has that kind of sales psychology when they're talking to people, and can bring some cohesion to the whole process. So I think I was pushing too hard myself on that for too long. And we're at the point now where we've got good businesses, but we now need to have great businesses. And that's only really going to happen with the right skill set.
Yeah. And, it's really a fantastic point that you bring up, which is a lot of people who are brilliant people, very, very good at something, absolute experts at a particular thing, become founders, become owners of companies, and then take on the marketing themselves. And pretty soon it's like, we do need to find these strategies. We need to get these new strategies. We need to iterate these strategies. And pretty soon such a major portion of your week is taken up with marketing that you're not the expert that you came to the company for. Now you're a marketer. And for a person whose skill set is not necessarily naturally aligned with marketing, you're spending a great deal of time that would otherwise be better spent doing something else, doing your own marketing, and potentially not even doing, the type of job that a professional marketer or salesperson might bring, which is exactly what you're looking for right now. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a really weird concept, because I always used to give myself a bit of a hard time for it, thinking, no, even as an acquirer or as a founder or as an operator, you've got to be into the sales, like you've got to drive that part of the business. But if it's not a strength of yours, and I don't believe in saying we've got weaknesses, I believe that we've got opportunities. But if that's not a strength, but it's an opportunity of yours, you're only ever going to take it so far. Like, it's not going to be the case where you're going to become an average salesperson and then over 6 months you're going to become an incredible salesperson, because if it's just not in your tool set, it's only going to go as far. So that's where I'm just like, well, this, to your point, Jules, exactly what you said. I'm involved in something where originally that wasn't where I really wanted to bring a lot of value. So I've got to then just accept that whilst there might be a bit of a sunk cost fallacy because I've been doing it for a year, there needs to be a time where I just got to say, okay, enough's enough. We need to bring in the right person now. And that could be for someone that's even operationally, that there's lots of people that hate ops. They might be fantastic salespeople in their businesses, but as their business is scaling, because the sales is working really well, the business behind the scenes is falling apart because they don't have the foundations in place. That's at the point you say, well, I'm okay at ops, but I need someone now to come in, supercharge all the back end, sort out the foundations of the business. So as we're growing, we can do that really sustainably, and we're not going to break the company as we're basically trying to grow at the same time. And we're kind of at the other end of that. But yeah, I mean, hiring at the right time for the right skill set is critical. We're definitely in that journey right now as well.
Yeah. And, I think that brings up a great point just about desire, is that we as people, if you don't love what you do, it's going to shine through in your work. If you do love what you do, that's also going to shine through in your work. And so if you don't love that ops, if you don't love that back end stuff, and you're trying to do it because you think that you should, or with that sunk cost fallacy, like you've already done it for a year, and so you just feel like you should continue to do it, that's not the thing that's going to get the most growth for your company. The thing that's going to get the most growth for your company is outsourcing something to an expert. And I think that's probably where you guys shine. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's just that point it's that realization point for anyone where as soon as, the earlier you realize that and the quicker you act on it naturally, and it's not a guarantee, but I'd say as far as that's when you're really going to then yield the benefit at some stage.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, Chris, it's been fantastic having you on the show, and I really appreciate your time and effort. Was there anything else that you wanted to add that I didn't ask?
No, this has been really good, Jules. It's just good to give some people insight into what we're doing and what we're not doing very well, but also how we're kind of combating that. So if anyone takes anything away from this, then that would be great. And obviously anyone's free to reach out to me on all the relevant channels, LinkedIn being probably the best place to catch me.
Sure. And then Chris, it's been fantastic having you on the show. Thank you so much for your insight. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Jules. It's been really useful, and I hope people take away something from what I've said on the podcast on some of the things that we're doing well and some of the things that we're learning from. I think it's useful to talk about the both sides. I think we hear a lot of the good in everything, but we don't always hear about the things that people are really working on. So I hope people do take away from that. And of course, I mean, if people want to reach out, ask a bit more information, LinkedIn is definitely the best place to find me.
Great. And for all the viewers and listeners, you can find the LinkedIn in the show notes. Thank you again, Chris.